India Coffee House in Bengaluru. The delicious smell of South Indian filter coffee, the sound of animated chatter. This evening, there is an unexpected addition. A performance based on the poems of Pratibha Nandakumar, Vandu Lessu, Vandu Plassu, named after the way patrons order their coffee without or with sugar.
In Bangalore especially, many Kannada literary movements have taken their birth in coffee house. So I thought it was like an urban water hole where all kinds of animals come. So that is how this coffee house poems, they started coming into me. The fight between husband and wife was about domestic violence. And what I say in the poem is that the husband and wife may fight all they want and the people will not intervene.
Coffee ಬಗ್ಗೆನೇ ಒಂದು ಎಂಟರ್ಟೈನ್ಮೆಂಟ್ ಒಂದು ಮಾಡಿದ್ರು ಅವರು ತುಂಬಾ ಚೆನ್ನಾಗಿತ್ತು ಎಲ್ಲ ಎಂಜಾಯ್ಡ್ ಇಟ್.
ಕಾಫಿ ಮತ್ತೆ ನಮ್ಮ ಜೀವನ ಯಾವ ರೀತಿ ಕಾಫಿಗೆ ಇದಾಗಿದ್ದೀವಿ ಅನ್ನೋದನ್ನ ಹೇಳಕ್ಕೆ ಒಂದು ಸಿಕ್ತು ಒಂದು.
This is the second edition of Project 560.
So many debates about, is this art? Should this art be public? What does public art mean? What does found spaces mean? I think the whole process of the first year raised more questions. And that was one of the reasons we said, okay, if there's so many questions, we have to find answers. And let's come back again.
Cornwallis stood at the gates of Bangalore. 11-18 pounders screamed and hollered.
We are so used to seeing performances, productions, installations, exhibitions in very common places, in galleries and auditoriums. But are there other spaces that we can also look at?
Malleshwaram is one of the older, more traditional areas of Bengaluru, in a state of churn, like other parts of the city.
It's called Malleshwaram Calling. Both the phone booth and the antique phone inside, which is a rotary dial phone. And so it's a representation of a bygone year, and inside this phone booth we're thinking of it as a time capsule which takes people back to the 1950s. So we've interviewed about 25 people in Malleshwaram with the idea of telling their stories and recreating a sense of neighborhood that existed in the 1950s in Malleshwaram.
Another project was set in a museum.
Interestingly, I found that there were 4 war artifacts which were placed in the Bangalore Museum in different directions and different spaces. And each of them, in a way, not only spoke about war in a particular culture, but also spoke about war, how it shaped Bangalore city. And that was very interesting for me. So right from the beginning of how the very name Bengaluru gets its mention in one of the inscriptions in Bengaluru temple, to talking about the Vijayanagara sculpture where it talks about different emotions of people who are left behind the war, to the cannons of Tipu Sultan which told me the stories of the cantonment area, and finally the idea of how the urbanization itself is a war.
Vandu Lessu, Vandu Plassu. Calls for coffee without sugar or with sugar. Cries often heard here at the India Coffee House. But right now this is being used as a found space for performance of a play, part of the projects chosen for Project 560, a new way of looking at found spaces in our own city, ways in which the city will never look the same quite again. With Kumar and Nazir, Maya Sharma in Bengaluru for NDTV.